That was the original, by the way. That was the big dream of Alexa. So I used to work there. The internet is broken. This new tech that is coming out that will help you scale your business, will help you automate yourself as an entrepreneur to a large degree. You can actually write prompts that make it not sound like ChatGPT, right? That's one of those jobs that lasted for 3 months. My mind is blown every day. I believe humans will do better if they focus on what makes them special, which is being human.
Welcome to another podcast episode of Masterful.Info. Today we have a special guest, Daniel, the AI expert, and he will talk about a very interesting topic about the future of AI and how it will change the landscape. That's very interesting for especially entrepreneurs, because we invest in businesses in a long term. And with so many changes recently with ChatGPT and all the other tools, it's difficult to predict which direction the landscape is going to go and how it will reflect on your business so that your business exists in long term, in 10, 15 years. Daniel, welcome. I'm so happy to have you on our podcast.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Could you tell me a little bit about how you came to AI and why is it important for you?
I've always been fascinated by intelligence, how we process information and how we make decisions, which is my definition of intelligence. And to understand humans, I think the best models that we have are actually now AI models. Like, we're essentially modeling the human brain in terms of its capabilities with a slightly different substrate, of course. We're using silicon instead of neurons. But anyway, this was what fascinated me. And I also got into it through language. I was very much into language and communication. That was like the older background that I have. And so I've been in the space for a while. I did PhD, postdoc, Google, many startups in this space. I failed quite a few times, so I may have something to say about that. At least learn how not to fail from me.
Yeah.
And so now it's interesting because when I went into AI, it was a bit of a backwater. It was really not hypey, not trendy. That was 2011. And now it's the only thing anyone ever talks about. So I guess I was lucky and I caught like the early wave. And so here we are.
Yeah, it feels like the change was so sudden. I've heard about this IBM AI computer and it was so far away. It was over expensive. And then suddenly ChatGPT came and it blew our minds and it changed like how we work. If ChatGPT is offline sometimes, it feels like, okay, I can go home and chill a little bit because I'm so less productive without ChatGPT. But I guess it is not that of a sudden change. In the background, there has been development, and just there are sometimes some points in our lives where it's all the development is suddenly visible to everyone, to normal consumers. How is it going to change? Are we going to see more such big leaps and development of the AI?
What a wonderful question. I do believe there will be a few more moments to come where our mind is blown, where we have to reevaluate reality, like where we are and what the future looks like. But at the same time, these moments for me, because I follow this daily, they're pretty much every day or every week. Something incredible has just happened. Like something just comes out, and it takes a while for it to reach the average consumer, let's say. But it also sometimes just misses them entirely. It's like there's some huge thing that just happened and just doesn't become a single product. And then you just merge it with everything else that you already think, say, ChatGPT can do, which is often exaggerated. Like we now start to think of this as like the ultimate galaxy brain that knows everything. And it is not, right? It still has many limitations. And then something amazing happens that brings new capacities to new capabilities. And we will still think, oh no, but it was already able to do that. No, it wasn't. This is a new thing. We've just made another breakthrough, right? You see what I mean? It's hard to align what the research world sees with what the consumer sees, but maybe that's fine. So yeah, we'll still have our minds blown a few times, I expect.
Wow, I'm really looking forward, but also it's a little bit scary to be honest.
I
Because
hear that.
you never know like which industries can be obsolete. It feels like okay, I don't need to hire so many authors anymore, for example, or with designers, I still be hiring them, but they usually themselves like use image generation with AI and then they adjust it a little bit. Sometimes, yeah, they do it without. But with articles, I don't need like the average content creator, like for SEO, so much. It's more like editor nowadays or optimizer. Of course, I still need really good marketing authors who are really good in creating small pieces of like convincing content. But if the AI will have more like development and will become even better, it's as a business owner, it's a bit like scary. Even like as an agency, you never know, okay, I will go in this direction and I will be specialist in content creation and SEO and Google Ads or something. And suddenly companies don't need you because they can do it automatically. How do you see that?
I think there are several aspects of this that we could unpack. I think one of them is that currently these tools that we have are great at augmenting human labor, right? So you would have some experts, whether it's a copywriter or a designer or an artist that does illustrations or a coder. Like I've been coding with ChatGPT for 18 months now, ever since it came out, right? So you have this as a tool. You are still valuable as an employee or as a whatever, provider of services, let's say. It doesn't matter if you're a freelancer or however you charge for your services. But there will be a point, this is what we will have to talk about, there will be a point at which the tool itself will become as good as you at using the tool, right? This will come eventually. And that is the point that everybody fears, I think. Not that they're more productive, that their job is less grueling, that you don't have to like spend imagine you're a copywriter, right? And it's like, oh, write this, like, oh, stare at the blank page, start like, sketching some ideas, some bullet points, rearrange them. This is not very clear. Think about it again, go for a walk, come back. Instead of that, you can go to GP, I call ChatGPT GP, and say,
Yes.
hey, write me 20 bullet points about this. Okay, now flesh this out into a LinkedIn post. No, that's too hypey. Redo it this other way, right? And so it's way more fun, more engaging, less friction, and of course faster to do it this way. And so this is another aspect of it, which is these tools are great generators. Like the word says it all, generative AI, Gen AI. The whole value of it is it can blab endlessly about anything. It can make any image. It can make any video now. We can talk about audio and music and sound and stuff, but also any text, right? But then is that any good? And that's where the human comes in. There's this paradigm, generated discriminator, right? And the human is the ultimate discriminator, right? A human can, particularly if they know what they're doing, if they have some skills and expertise in the field, they'll look at it and go like, that's rubbish. Right. Let's do it again. That's rubbish.
Yeah.
Let's do it again. There's a thing of an idea there. Let's pick on this idea and expand it. Yeah. And so this ability to discriminate the good from the bad, the quality from the high to low quality from a human is very valuable. And I think it will remain for a while. But again, there will come a point when the AIs will be good enough or as good as humans.
Yeah, that's a little bit relieving because I also see at the current version of ChatGPT, it has a lot of rubbish. It looks so confident. And if you don't know the material, it looks really like it's talking to everything perfect. But for example, if I ask, this situation, which kind of marketing strategy do you recommend? It recommends almost everything. And I'm thinking, okay, if someone would implement that, they would lose so much time and money because they need to choose the right things. So luckily at the moment, there is still be a lot of work for humans. And also I think if you look how ChatGPT is working, it has all the knowledge out there. And all the knowledge means like also like average kind of quality knowledge. And if you want average quality, then ChatGPT is pretty decent. But if you want to stand out, then there is like only humans at the moment can make it stand out. But I mean, it might get better and better, but still, it's probably still be using the average content, like all the kinds of content, and it doesn't have like this conscious of evaluating which piece of content is more trustworthy or more intelligent. Of course, maybe like with social proofs, with someone has written a bestseller book, maybe this person is valued, this knowledge is valued a bit more than like forum entries. But it's probably pretty complicated for AI to distinguish the quality, isn't it?
I think you're absolutely right. I would like to say though that this is not a new problem. This has been the Google problem ever since Google started. In fact, the big breakthrough that started Google was this algorithm they devised to essentially determine whether a source is more trustworthy than another one just through the links that existed on the internet. That was the OG big invention at Google that started the company. Then, of course, over the years, that has been gamed. And so now you need every other possible source of evidence that you can get. And as you said, social proof is important. Authority is important. Like, I know that this is a person that we should listen to because they've published books, because they're on TV, blah, blah, blah. And so their opinion somehow is more important than other people's opinion. So all of that has been around for a long time. That's just the internet. And so now, to separate that from ChatGPT and Claude and all these other models. So what these models do is they look at a subset of all the internet data they can get. And some of it is like transcribed YouTube videos. Some of it is whatever audios as well. Like they bring all this data together that they can harvest, right? The more data, the better. And then with some filtering, of course, you need to take the most relevant data, the most trustworthy data, the most scientifically accurate data. You don't want GP to start saying that vaccines cause autism or the earth is flat, which, there's a lot of content about that on the internet. So you should, you should filter it somehow. Anyway, so you put that all together and then essentially you compress it. You take this whole amount of data and you compress it into just a few weights in the neural network. Now that is amazing because through the process of that compression, this network learns to connect seemingly unrelated concepts, learns to make inferences, to reason about the data that it has, all of those things, which is why we're blown away, right? Because we've put all this knowledge into one system that can then gracefully move from one topic to another. It can connect seemingly unrelated ideas. It can understand what it's like to speak with one tone of voice or another, or, you know, like to explain like I'm five. You know, you can go to GP and say, Ellie5, whatever, right? And it blows your mind how good it is at finding like simple concepts that you would use to explain something to a child, right? So that's what GP does. Now, what it doesn't do is it doesn't actually go out to the internet properly to see what's new or to, as you say, establish sources of authority. And as you say, it has to simplify. It has to bring, you know, it goes to the average rather than the excellence because there's more content about that because you have to compress because you have to get rid of some of the data that you're trained with. You can't store everything that you've seen. And then that also leads to, what we call hallucinations, which is when it thinks it believes, you know, something is true and then there's no evidence for it. But then the problem is these models, all they do is hallucinate. They're constantly hallucinating. But sometimes they hallucinate, like most of the times they hallucinate based on data they've seen. And so, you know, we say, okay, they got it right. This is true, quote unquote, because we have evidence for it. But then they just came up with something very confidently that isn't true. It's hard for them to distinguish, you know, imagination. It's kind of like they're dreaming the whole time, if you want.
I saw that over and over again. And I wish GPT would say, I am 30% certain. I am 90% certain.
Right. There are people working on that. This is an active area of research to get not necessarily these models, but a separate model that would look at the predicted tokens and say, no, you're not saying this with confidence. Regenerate. Like, look deep inside you. Is this actually, you know, like there are approaches to fixing hallucinations. And in fact, they've been applying them with some success, right? All of these systems have got better.
If you compare Wikipedia with ChatGPT, who would you trust more at the current, and how long will it change? How many years do we need?
Ah, what a great question. I think it depends on the article on the Wikipedia. A lot of Wikipedia articles are written by like one dude that has a very strong opinion about something, and they will bring their opinion into the article, right? And they will cite sources. But then when you see all these, if you go to the talk page of any Wikipedia page, you will see all these fights, these arguments between people like, oh, this is true. No, this is true. Oh, I have evidence, but I have this other evidence, So this is great, right? There's this public debate, and it actually gives me more confidence that this is truth, quote unquote, right? That this is more solidly grounded in reality because there's a debate going on about whether it is or isn't. But very often, lesser known Wikipedia pages will just be written by 2 or 3 authors who have very strong feelings one way or another. And so, politics comes into it, all kinds of biases. And so it depends. It depends on what.
Do you think companies with a bigger budget, they can manipulate the results of ChatGPT, for example, in terms of how ChatGPT is referring to their company?
Right. Everyone's trying to do that right now. This is not even like a secret or a mystery. Everyone's trying to, this is basically SEO, right? Back in the day, this was let's place higher in the results of Google. Now you still want to do this, but you want to do this so that your page is picked as training data for the next model that comes out. And so it agrees with your opinion, right?
Wow.
There's also been this idea floating around that, well, how do you monetize this stuff? And the old way of monetizing is the advertisement based. And so Bing is doing this, by the way. I don't know if you've been using Bing. They inject advertising into the search results, which they've already been doing as a search engine, but now they're doing it as a, the generation is like, oh yeah, blah, blah, blah. And by the way, you can use, so I'm like, okay, I personally don't like the direction that is going, not because I'm against advertising, not because I'm against SEO, but we're not talking about, hey, here's a list of results and you can skip it. We're talking about you trusting this bigger intelligence that will give you the answer to your question, but then it turns out it's biased, right? And that is something that I personally I'm not a big fan of.
Yeah, as long as they at least market as like sponsored or advertisement.
No, that is there. I mean, it's not like a hidden thing, but what you said is exactly the right question. What if they're actually inserting this as a, without telling you it's advertising? I'm sure everybody's thinking about it. I'm sure everybody's trying to do it.
So there is a first business idea that is just emerging, SEO for AI, for GPT and co. The audience can create agency or becoming a freelance and expert in this field. There will be much more demand than the classical SEO in a while.
I mean, as we move away from browsing the internet via search results and we start trusting agents that just give us answers or do like carry out actions for us, increasingly, I think the interfaces will move away from put in a bunch of keywords, get a list of results, click, go to the page, close the bloody cookie pop-up, whatever it is, they have to click, 20 clicks just to buy a train ticket, right? I think eventually you'll just go, hey, GP, buy me a train ticket. Oh, here's 3 options. Yeah, go with the cheaper one. I'm not like in a hurry, right? Cheers. Done. I think that was the original, by the way. That was the big dream of Alexa. If you remember Amazon Alexa, I mean, it's still around, but it used to be like a bigger hype. It was more in the news a few years ago. So I used to work there and I saw it behind the scenes. The big dream of Alexa was that it would do that. It would become your interface to the world and therefore the everything store, right? It will purchase things for you and stuff, which more money for Amazon, right? That's, that was the idea, right? Then it turned out to just be terrible technology, but they thought they could make it work and then it turned out they couldn't. But I think now we do have the tech. Now the tech is actually going to be that good. And eventually that vision of you interacting with the world via a, kind of like a butler, like a concierge, that does things for you. I think that's going to become true.
Yeah, I imagine it like in Iron Man, where he moves around and speaks with this AI. Jarvis, yes. It feels like amazing. You can be, especially for creative people, it can be really like you can remove all those unnecessary challenges with being able to motivate the other people who are helping you, the time difference, and so on, and also being able to afford a whole team who can help you with the research and so on. But in the same time, I'm thinking if I am, as a business owner or as an agency, investing a lot of money into websites, into search engine optimization in Google, and I'm hoping like it pays off in the next 5 to 10 years. But if the websites are getting less and less important, will it replace websites, classical websites, or will it just change the how the websites look like?
Okay, that actually is something that we can already talk about because we're seeing it happen already.
Mhm.
Like it used to be the website, then it was the app. And now what seems to
Yeah.
be the thing, at least for content, is the video. Like people are actually looking for stuff on TikTok. Instead of searching
Yeah.
on Google, they search on TikTok for like restaurant recommendations or how to get to a place, what to do in a city when you arrive. All of these
Yeah.
search queries are now better served by video. Like that's where the content lives. Like the information you want is in video format, which to me is a bit annoying because watching a video takes longer than reading, like skimming through text, right? But it's more engaging. And I think that's why it's winning. It's also become a default. Like all these more recent generations, I don't want to date myself, but like all the younger folk that are like constantly on their phones scrolling, right? To them,
Yeah.
that is the interface to reality, right? You just scroll and then you get videos that tell you things, and that's how you absorb information, right? And so I think video is important. We see it. It's not just me saying that. There's
Yeah.
even, I read this wonderful Twitter thread about China where it has become the format. Like you go to the websites of companies and they haven't been updated since 2020. They don't even put their stuff on their website anymore.
Wow.
So unless you have an online store, but then you can have a store on TikTok or on Instagram. Like you can literally sell
Yeah.
there. You can have it on WhatsApp. You can directly sell through these apps. So they become the storefront as well, right? So do you even need a website, right? That's the question.
Yeah, that has been even before AI. People were asking that because there is so much opportunity with social media. They so much easier with a few clicks. And I think Google motivated people to write very long pieces of content. And I am oftentimes really annoyed. I'm searching for one answer, just one word. And I read the title is already very too long. And then it's just asking the same question that I just asked. And then find the solution somewhere in among those 2000 words.
The internet has been, as a friend of mine says, in shitified, right?
Yes, yes.
The incentives are poorly aligned with the user's incentives, right? Your need is one word, but the need of the marketer who's trying to push that thing to rank higher is for you to click, open the website and scroll for as long as possible. So they show you more
Yes.
ads or maybe they convert you into whatever they're trying to convert, right? So these are completely opposite needs and incentives. Like I just want the word, you want my money. I don't want to pay you for a word, right? So, or my
Yes.
attention, which is my time, which is even more valuable. You want to steal
Yeah.
time of my life. Why? Just give me the word, right? And then there's all of this. So Google could actually, they've been trying to do this, right? They have all these like web answer snippets and stuff. You just get the answer in the Google results. You don't need to
Yeah.
click and open the site. But then there's been a lot of pushback from publishers and content
Yeah.
platforms and stuff because, oh, well, now we don't get clicks, right? You know, people don't come to our
Yeah.
sites and there have been court cases and Google has had to defend that it's in the user's interest, you know, all of this, you know, the internet is broken, basically. and so,
Wow.
and so it's changing, you know, like, my feeling is that this thing that we complain about with good reason is going to go down. Going to be less of it. Like now we have tools that will just do the browsing for us and give us the answer, and all of that is out, or at least even I hope so.
You were working for Google, and do you think will Google lose on importance, especially the search engine?
We're seeing it already. I mean, I don't think
Yeah.
this is the future. I think it's the present. Will they make less money? You never know. You know, they're such a big corporate now. It's, you know, so many fingers and so many pies. that it might be that they stop being so important as the one search engine. They will lose the monopoly. I have no doubt about that.
Yeah.
But they might remain. I mean, still be a big player. And they have so many other interesting things they're doing that might make them trillions, right? So the self-driving cars or I don't know, all the tech that runs the internet is their data centers. There's a lot of stuff that they can monetize. So I don't think Google, the company, is going away. I do think the search engine will stop being the one search engine. I do believe that.
Yeah, I feel like they are trying to squeeze more and more money from their search engine. I see it from the Google Ads perspective. Yeah, that's probably inevitable to lose a lot of shares to other more like user-friendly solutions like ChatGPT maybe, or even Bing is becoming a serious probably competitor with their ChatGPT integration.
Absolutely. There's others, and I think my bet would be more on like things like Perplexity.
Ah,
It's not perfect, but I do like it more. I find that it finds me what I'm looking for with more success than
yeah.
any of the others. So I think there's going to be a healthy competition going in the space for at least a while. Maybe it consolidates again. We'll see. But for now, I think the field is opening to more players.
Yeah, speaking of healthy competition, I feel like the most AI tools nowadays are based on the API of ChatGPT. Is it true or?
Sadly, yes. I find that irritating because there are good alternatives, and it's just people are lazy and often. So these things that you mentioned are often just kind of like wrappers around GP. So like they'll be trying to think
Yes,
of
exactly.
a very specific use case. And why bother building your own infrastructure, figuring out how to do things? Nah, let's just use GP. And then it's all about UI, UX, adding a little bit of value here and there with like the special function that you don't get out of vanilla GP. I don't know how defensible that is long term.
Yeah, I think there are two things. First of all, you are relying on ChatGPT, and who knows in which direction the company goes. And there were some small scandals with the CEO being fired and then reinstated. Now they are building the user base, the quality of the content. And as soon as they are really big, they can also like increase the prices, and many SaaS startups, software as a service startups, might not be profitable. It's like with many other areas that were really easy in the beginning, like Amazon FBA or even social media, selling like on social media. It was so easy in the beginning. And then when they become really big, then they said, okay, now you have to pay everything, like all your profits, and only few can afford that. The second thing is, I have the feeling like it's pretty expensive to create a competitor kind of to ChatGPT because it needs so much data and so much technology.
That's getting cheaper and easier
Ah, okay,
and
that's good.
faster. And so there are many, many open weights models, as they're called. So models that people train that are on par. And actually, most of these things that are coming out are way better than GPT 3.5, and people just don't know
Wow.
it. And some of these you can run on your laptop. I mean, they're small enough that you
Wow.
can just run them offline, and very soon they're coming to phones. So, I mean, this kind of technology is going to become more and more distributed and more available and in more and more devices. And so I don't worry about OpenAI having such a moat that nobody can assault. I mean, I don't dislike them as much as other people do. I think they're doing really good work. Yes, of course, they're becoming a corporation, and yes, it's going to be for profit, and of course, all of those things. But they're benefiting the world as they do so is my take on it. So I'm totally okay with that. At the same time, this has led to this Cambrian explosion, this proliferation in these AI models, which are now free, open source sometimes, open weights most of the time, which means you can just download the model and run it yourself. You can run it in your own cloud instance, or you can run it on your laptop, or you can run it on your beefy computer if you have one. So basically, this is democratized a lot. We get all
Mhm.
these like easy to use, available brains, right? So actually the amount of intelligence is, is shooting up, right? Now the question still remains like, what do we use them for? And so there are still a few interfaces that are missing, We can talk about AI agents if you want and how that's not quite there yet, but it's the next thing that's coming up. So I don't worry about OpenAI being the only player in town.
Oh, that's good. Whew. So there, it's a limitation of your creativity, kind of, and like a little bit of skill probably is needed as well. But they are probably also getting plug and play solutions, kind of, or at least to a certain degree, you can use existing kind of open source solutions.
To your previous question, the why does everybody just use the OpenAI API? As I said, because they're lazy. They could literally swap it for Claude or Gemini, and they work almost exactly as well for depending your use
Wow.
case, right? So there are very like niche things where GPT-4 still has a tiny, tiny advantage over the others, but we're talking like super deep reasoning tasks. At copywriting, it's by far not the best. At math
Wow.
resolving, it's by far not the best. Like there's a lot of things that we have now way better models for. And many of these models are actually open weights in open source. Like actually we've beat
Wow.
ChatGPT, the one that you can access on the API. We've beat it with other models. But those models, you have to run, you have to download, you have to manage, you know, like as opposed to, oh, I'll just connect to the API, done. That's what everybody's doing. I do it as well, right? That seems to be the reason right now.
Yeah, I think it's in many cases it's also okay to test the business idea, to create a minimum viable product. And then if it works, if there is a huge demand, if people are willing to pay, then you can look at other alternatives. Then you also can afford the experts, to hire the experts who can set it up, everything. Let's talk about businesses. So what would you recommend for businesses now to do at the moment to change their approach, maybe the mindset, to outsource tasks, to automation and stuff, so that they are competitive in the middle term and long term, maybe?
Okay, if you say business, I'm going to take this as a startup or indiepreneur, solopreneur, even like
Yes,
entrepreneurs
exactly.
at early stages or small scale. Because when you say business, to me, that means corporate, and
No,
corporates are the slowest moving
yeah.
tankers. Those guys are still struggling to think how to rework their processes and stuff. They will eventually, but they're the slowest ones to move. Now, if we're talking about entrepreneurs, I think there's a lot of risk and a lot of opportunity opening up. And the risk is if you are charging for your labor, essentially. So if you're more of a freelancer than an entrepreneur, if you're what you provide is services that you deliver in some way. If those are digital in nature, if you're creating digital goods, whether that's code or images or video or whatever it is that you're giving back to the user as the final product, right? If that's what you're doing, then very soon there will be an AI competitor that will do it. Maybe not as good as you, but definitely cheaper and faster. And so that's going to be a big change there. But the opportunity is, as you mentioned earlier, about employees and how they're. It's a lot of work to find the right people, convince them to join you, onboard them, and keep them motivated and keep them productive, and put them in the right teams and resolve issues and all of these things. Right? That is going to get way better, I believe. I think in the next couple of years or so, we're going to start to see these AI systems coupled with other AI systems that we already have and a few that we're still developing become AI workers, right? Become AI
Yeah.
employees, which you will be able to include into your existing processes or just fully delegate tasks or missions to. You will say, hey, GP1, you're in charge of, social media marketing. Off you go. Oh, but I need more
Wow.
resources. Okay, make five of you. Off you go. I'll pay. No problem, right? And then
Wow.
GP2, you're going to build a product. And then GP3, that kind of thing. I think that's going to come pretty soon. In the next 2 years, we should have pretty good ones. Obviously, you can't expect them to fully replace a human from day one, but if they replace a human even 20% at 0.1% of the cost with 100% of the uptime, 100% of the motivation, they won't quit. They won't steal from you. You know what I mean? Like all of these issues that
Yeah.
you potentially have with humans, right? Then they're competitive. And so they will take jobs they will take from what people do, and that's currently that's good for the entrepreneur, I think, because it saves you on people, it saves you on like the like it's even like not just the money that it saves you, is that it enables you to do it. Sometimes
Yeah.
you don't even see your vision realized because you don't know how to find the right people, how to hire them, or you can't afford them, or whatever it is, right? So it's not even possible for you. And now it will become possible. So I think that's one huge opportunity.
Yes, that's really great. I had this experience. I wanted to rewrite some content, and I was hiring cheap freelancers, and it was the meaning was lost so many times, and there was like such a big time difference. I give them the content and I say, I want articles similar to that with the same like core message, but shorter and stuff. And yeah, they are decent writers, but they also need to understand the topic. And they rewrote it. Like I gave it to 5 different freelancers, and all of them, I needed to so many like changes, and 1 week, 2 weeks just to create such a small like project. And now with ChatGPT, I realized like, oh, it's not perfect, but it's at least with such simple tasks, it's much better than and much faster and much cheaper than the previous versions.
It's happened already.
It's happening, yeah. I mean, there is in the current version of ChatGPT, I think people also overestimate the capabilities of AI. You can already recognize the content, for example, on LinkedIn. If you see content made by ChatGPT, you know.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. It's also a bit of laziness on the part of
Yeah.
people using that technology to create this content, because you can actually write prompts that make it not sound like ChatGPT, right? But you have to care and realize that that's
Yeah.
a problem and do something about it. And yeah, people just don't. Just like we were talking about earlier, they just use the OpenAI API, they just use GP, whatever comes out, and that's what they push to their feeds.
Yeah, I use ChatGPT by recording with smartphone all my thoughts, and then tell ChatGPT. I don't know if which my assistant, and I ask it to optimize my notes, or to create a LinkedIn post, or to create a script for something, for YouTube video or something. And then it works pretty well because it's in the boundaries of my own thoughts. But if I ask just create a script about this topic, then it's so like it sounds good, but the content itself, the knowledge, the value is almost zero.
I understand. And I think this is something we skip over too often, which is that the text that you're writing, or the video you're making, or whatever content you're making and putting out there, is a vehicle, a receptacle for the nugget of knowledge, wisdom, insight, whatever, the joke, whatever it is that you're putting in there. That's what you want to put in the head of the reader, watcher, listener, right? You want to share this idea in your head with their head, right? And put it in there, and everything else is the wrapping. You put it in like chocolate or something, and then this is it's an easy to swallow pill, right? But
Yeah.
what you want is that, so you can't expect the LLM to just be so, insightful about something that it doesn't have any context on, right? So when you are recording your notes and you're saying, write me a post about this, it can do the wrapping, it can coat it in chocolate, but
Yes.
the nugget is yours. You already have these ideas. It's just finding ways of wording them.
Yeah, ChatGPT has so much information, so it's not very good in giving you the best piece of content or knowledge from all this. So usually it's like standard. Okay, I will give you 10 different topics, or 10 different like channels as a marketing strategy, for example, and you choose yourself what to do. So at the moment, I think the important learning for entrepreneurs and for all other users is it's just a tool. It's not a replacement for now. Maybe if you use it in the correct way, you can say, okay, imagine I am Elon Musk and I'm writing this tweet Okay, maybe not the best idea to do that.
I would want to add here that the reasons you cannot yet use it as an agent, as an employee, or as such a knowledgeable assistant is that it's missing a bunch of components, right? It has this one module that just generates the next token, right? Just generates text given text. That is currently what it excels at. But it doesn't have long-term memory, right? It doesn't have the ability to structure its, the understanding that it gathers from a conversation with you is not represented anywhere as a set of memories that are, related to each other and, make sense as a coherent whole, like, a picture of the situation. It just has a bunch of words, a bunch of tokens to go by. And the issue with that is it has a limited window of tokens that it can compute over just because of the infrastructure. The way the tech is made right now, it has a very short-term memory, right? By very short, I mean a conversation that you have to scroll down the page 3 times.
Yes,
You've run out of memory, right? And so you don't realize that that's happening because they have this clever trick where they keep the beginning of the conversation and the end of the conversation, and they just cut out all the middle. Right? Because actually a lot of the middle kind of carries on in the latest version. So you often don't need it. So it's a smart trick. It's a very, very basic thing to do. It's a smart trick, but you still end up with just like this very low context, generation, right? And I think there's going to be meaningful change there. Soon we'll have more structured memories and soon we'll have agentic, LLMs that can actually carry out tasks for you. They won't just tell you, oh, you should go there and do that. They will say, would you like me to go there and do that for you, or, I'll get started, or, it'll try to be more proactive. I think that's what we're going next. And, I think the memory part is super important. People do assume this. I've spoken to marketers actually in real life who insisted that, GP understood them better because of all the conversations they had with it. I'm like, that sadly is not correct. You want to see that, but the reality is every individual conversation is its own world. It's like you're starting from scratch every single time, right? There's no context carried in between. And so I think when we manage to build that in, like it starts to understand you better and better. It has the whole context of all of the pieces of content you've written or all the ones that you care about that you wanted to emulate or whatever. You can give it a lot more context about stuff. I think we're going to start to see way better performance at these tasks.
Yeah, I think we, as humans, we always see patterns, even if they don't exist. So in this case, yeah, it feels like a friend, like an assistant, like a female secretary or a male secretary. For each of us, it's a different imagination kind of thing, because it's also sometimes feels so human with how it speaks, especially this voice. I sometimes spend some like mornings and brainstorming ideas with this with ChatGPT. Okay, it used to be a female voice, now it changed to male voice.
Okay.
Yeah,
they had that whole thing with Scarlett Johansson complaining that they cloned her voice. Did you see that?
Oh, no.
Oh, well, so when they launched, you know the movie Her, right? Where falls in love with this AI that is only a voice, right? It's his AI assistant that gets to know him deeper than anybody else because it has every bit of context about him and blah, blah, blah. And this, I don't want to spoil the movie for those who want to watch it and haven't, but he does fall in love with it. And the movie is called Her. And when they released the latest version of GPT-4o, there was a big launch, like, look how cool our voices are, look at all the things it can do, blah, blah. And Sam Altman, CEO of OpenAI, tweeted one tweet that went, Her, right? And so very cool. All the nerds loved it. And then Scarlett Johansson, who is the voice of that AI in the movie, said, you've cloned my voice without my permission, right? And I'm going to sue you. And that's because they had been asking her for a while to actually be the voice. They want to license her actual voice to be the actual voice of GP. Like they wanted to make the real life her, like actually like the movie. And she didn't agree, I guess, because probably, you don't know what it's going to say, right? So you can make Scarlett Johansson and GP say whatever you wanted to say. And so she probably wasn't comfortable with it. I don't know the exact reasons, but she said no. And then they released this voice, which sounded to all of us who aren't experts, sounded quite like Scarlett Johansson. And so she was very angry about that. And then there were some like voice experts actually comparing, like looking at the features of the voice, blah, 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 and concluded that no, that is not her at all. And actually it sounded more like three other actresses in Hollywood than her. So like, it turns out that we all kind of believed it sounded like her, and she did as well. But then with science, we can prove that it's not. Anyway, they're still, I guess they're still in that moment of, letting this storm pass, right? Before they release the voices they want to release. I think that's the situation.
Interesting. So it's all about creating the right prompts.
Maybe it depends. What's the task? What are you trying to achieve?
Because I've heard like the new like kind of job trend or specialty trend, the prompt engineering.
Oh yeah.
What do you think about it? Is it important? Should entrepreneurs?
Nah, easy. No. So Claude, which is the main competitor to GP right now, if you haven't tried it, I highly recommend it. Claude Sonnet 3.5 is now the best model out there. It outperforms GP at pretty much every single task, everything you can think of, and it's a better copywriter. And it sounds way less than GP, like GP, and it actually makes a lot more sense in its replies. Like I've been using it and I'm very satisfied, but there's also like public benchmarks of, this is not just a feeling. There's good data to show that it's better. So Claude is a very good prompt engineer. There's a special mode of Claude where you go, this is what I want to achieve. And it says, I'm going to write you the right prompt to get that out. And it will write you the prompt for itself. Let's say, this is what you should be good at. Like, okay, I'm going to make a good prompt so that this is the output you're getting. So prompt engineering, I don't think that's already been automated. That's one of those jobs that lasted for 3 months.
Oh wow! Nowadays, it's you have to be like all the time on reading all this development. Otherwise, you're just starting and it's already over.
Tell me about it. I spend way too many hours of every single day just scrolling on like the latest news. And as I was saying earlier, like my mind is blown every day. Like, wow, we just did this thing. Wow, I say we, like I had anything to do with it.
Yeah.
But like
the humanity.
Humanity, I'm going to take credit for all of humanity here. No, it's insane. The speed of change, of progress I do believe it's still accelerating. So it's, at some point it will not be possible to keep up. You'll have to just space it out and say, okay, what's the state now a month later? Oh, we've already solved the robot control of this thing. Yes, another 2 million jobs go away.
Yeah, I think the development is very fast, but the implementation to the average consumer and to the mass is much slower. Because also humans are not that adaptable oftentimes. Like you are exception, maybe like they are those trendsetters. They are in front of the trends and they are trying all the tools and learning about, and they are very open for those innovations. But average people, they are like, yeah, I have my routine, I have my daily life. And as soon as it becomes really popular, then they move to these tools. But for business owners, of course, it's important to see those trends in early, because the investments in things that might not be there in 1 year, that could be pretty painful, because the entrepreneurs invest in like, okay, in 2 years, in 5 years, it will pay off if everything goes according to the plan. So entrepreneurs should also like be aware of what will change, which part of industries will be like removed and which will be added. I guess we cannot cover all the possibilities in this podcast episode, but we can explain like to audience how they can keep up with those trends. And also it's change of mindset. It's not like back then you create a business and you say, okay, it will last for the next 50 years. The same product, maybe even. It's now total different.
I mean, it's rare that I see businesses last that long. And when we think of digital businesses, I think that's even more rare, right?
Yeah, that's true.
It's a complex space, I think, because you have a lot of confounders from external sources. I'll give the main example, which is venture capital. For the last, I don't know, maybe 14 years. I say the last until maybe early last year or late the previous year. 14 years prior to that, we had zero interest rates, right? Since
Yeah.
2008. And that shaped the digital industries because when you put your money in the bank and it costs you money to keep your money in the bank, well, then you want to put it elsewhere. So where do you put it? Well, you put it on stocks, which is why stocks have been pumping. You put it on crypto and you put it on risky and, well, even riskier bets, such as venture capital. And that's why we've had all this flood of money going into tech. Because tech was expected to pump, which it did. But a lot of this investment went to zero, right? If you're in VC, you
Yes.
know that you expect that of 100 investments, like 80 will go to zero, 20 will like return, like break even, and then maybe one or two will make you the trillions, which is what you're looking for, right? So it's shaped the way we think about tech, and we've been thinking that tech. I speak of tech because this is what I understand. I mean, I can't tell you about
Yes. Yes.
manufacturing tractors because I know nothing about that. But,
Yes.
but I mean, different kind of tech, but in digital stuff, right? And so you used that money, right? And if you were in the cult of Silicon Valley, you said, well, we have to do what Google did because everybody has to follow what Google did. We have to be two guys in a garage and we have to live on ramen until we've raised a bunch of millions on something that is making zero money and will make zero money for the next 20 years, right? But we're going to raise millions now because one day you'll be sorry that you weren't an early investor in this new company. And that was the model. And so you would raise money and then hire a lot of people who are very expensive people. And then you would waste a lot of money, waste and waste and waste all this money, throw it at stuff that didn't need to be built, that nobody wanted, or even like subsidize your product. Uber is a great example of this. Uber, which is in a way a big success because it went public and everybody made their money. So all the investors made tons of money on Uber, but the company, I can't remember the exact numbers. There's this wonderful graph that you can find of like how much money Uber raised. And therefore, if you think from a business point of view, right, you're at zero, right? Money made or lost. You raise a round of like, a billion or something. Then you're a billion down. You need to make that money back somehow. And then you raise another round, another round, another round. So there were something like 80 billions of funding. And there's big news that Uber had finally turned a profit. And if you see this graph as like funding, and the profit was this tiny little sliver of a line at the bottom, right? So, wow, you gotta climb a lot to actually make back the money that was pumped into this venture.
Wow.
Now, the good thing is nobody lost money because the bigger fool, which is the stock market, absorbed that money. And we all believe Uber needs to exist and we all believe it's worth something, although it loses money. So in that environment, when this is what business looks like in the digital sphere, right? Uber is a bit of a physical company as well, yes, but mostly digital. Like the main assets they have are digital. And so when that's the environment, how can you make any meaningful commentary on what's going to happen next? It all depends on what the interest rates are going to do. Well, the interest rates went up. And when they did, cataclysm, extinction level event. Many of the startups I know are dying. I've had startups that couldn't raise. So, the whole environment has fully changed. Now, this is the bad news, I guess. This is the situation we're in. The good news is this comes at a time when, and we were talking about this earlier about how much it costs to say build some B2B SaaS, right? And the investment that you make into this effort company, and whether it's worth doing if it's not going to bring you enough value over the next, say, 5 years. Will this still be alive and making money in 5 years? And so should you build it now because of the upfront investment and the long lead time? Well, the good news is the upfront investment can now go to pretty much zero, right? It's so cheap to create digital goods, and very soon it will trend to zero, right? Another example of this, I mentioned Claude.ai earlier. If you go play with it, this is the free version, by the way. This is not the paid version. If you go there and turn on the artifacts thing, this is a preview in the browser of an app that it can build you. And so, well, app or a drawing or whatever it is that's making like a website. And you can say, hey, Claude, make me a game of this type. And it, outputs all of that. And on the side, there's a split pane, where you talk to it and where you see what it's made. And you can immediately interact with that game. It's already running in your browser. And then you go like, no, change this so that the enemies are slower and I want more points. Add another mechanism for collecting items that will, level up whatever character. Turn it into a role-playing game. Boom, new game, new iteration. It takes you seconds. In seconds, you can create games that you can iterate over. And this is a toy right now because it only runs in the browser and it's very limited and it doesn't actually draw images and things like that. I can see this in a year making you Unity games that you can just, make an app out of and boom, you can play on your phone. This is going to be the cost of developing software. Pretty much zero. And so there's this very interesting article that I read recently. It's called, I can't remember the exact name, but it talks about the barefoot developers. There's this idea that right now, to be a developer, you need to be super highly trained, educated, prepared, a lot of experience. And it's true, right? Because the frameworks suck. Everything's like, hacky and it breaks all the time. And it needs a lot of understanding of what's happening in the machine. But now that we have these systems that are the interface to that, basically anyone can be a developer. Anyone is a developer. All you need to know is what you want, right? Remember, the human is not as good a generator, but a great discriminator, right? So the human can go to the machine and say, I want this, and then go, this is not good enough. Change that. Okay, now change this other thing, right? And that's how app and, software development is going to look like. Well, tomorrow. Like it's already here. It's already happening. So that's okay. So back to the original question. This is the big opportunity that I see, that actually building those MVPs, those first versions of your software to see if it actually solves the need to because at some point after validating that people want this through whatever methods, customer development, through setting up landing sites, getting them to sign up, A/B testing, through guerrilla marketing on Reddit, whatever it is you've done, right? And you say, this needs to exist. And then you go and build it. That's the expensive and long part of it. You need to go and build it. Well, now this is going to shrink in time and it's going to go to like zero in budget. You're just going to build the first version of it and then see how people use it. Of course, at some point you'll need some kind of developer in the future, but you see like it just gets lower barrier to entry. It just gets cheaper and faster.
That's incredible. So the requirements for humans to be successful, like in skills and knowledge, are changing. It seems like creativity is becoming more important in this case because it's like you can implement everything what is on your mind very easily. So you don't need like the coding to know a lot about how to code. It's good to come up with some ideas outside of the box, maybe understanding what is needed, maybe like speaking with potential target audience and understanding what they are missing. What do you think? That's my opinion. It doesn't need to be your opinion. What do you think? Which like skills should we acquire, especially like entrepreneurs, soft skills and also like knowledge? What would you recommend to focus on?
The ultimate answer to this is that I believe humans will do better if they focus on what makes them special, which is being human, right? We discussed this earlier. I think humans invest in humans, humans buy from humans, humans trust humans, right? And that's unlikely to go away. And so personal brand, networking, connections, right? That is unlikely to go away. That's unlikely to change that meaningfully. Because these AI agents that will give jobs to, that will automate every digital remote job that exists, is my belief as well. They won't do the networking for us, or not as good. Or even if they were really, really good at the digital part of it, people will not like that, I believe. I think people still want to meet other people. I'll give you an example as to why I believe this. During COVID, I had a startup we were trying to raise. We found it extremely hard to raise because people wanted to meet you physically, to shake your hand, to exchange germs. This is how you establish trust, right? There's this symbol that we have something to trust each other with because we met physically. shook hands, we're in the same environment and we didn't like kill each other or something. And therefore I trust you. I don't know exactly how it
Yeah.
works, but something like primitive and, subconscious, subliminal in there. There's some symbol that is important, right? And even today, right? Like we're back to in real life meetings. Yes, COVID happened. Yes, we got used to Zoom, and yes, here we are on a call for a podcast, right? But if you're transacting business, I still see this happening to much greater efficiency in real life. I see that you meet someone and immediately go, yes, let's stay in touch. I have a job for you. Exchange contacts, immediate. Try applying online for jobs, and going through months of rejections and despair and ghosting, right? Or go to an event, meet somebody who likes you on the spot. You have like a few drinks with them and then they go, you the man, and then they offer you a job. This happens to me over and over. And I think alcohol does it. But the point is, I think humans will do well by remaining human. And I think we've been on a mission to turn humans into robots. Ever since the Industrial Revolution, we've tried to turn humans into machines that are reliable, that are on time, that deliver to spec, that, they behave like a
Yeah.
machine. That's what we've been doing
Yeah.
to ourselves, waking up with an alarm clock. You have to be here at this time. This is your output and we're going to measure it. And it has to be this much or then you're fired because you're not good enough. Or, just treating people as devices, as black boxes
Yes.
that carry out an economic activity. And maybe we're at a point where we're going to actually get rid of this and we'll be able to just let ourselves be human again. Yes, we'll be inefficient and yes, we'll be unproductive. And you know what? That's probably fine because we will have outsourced these things to machines that we have made for us. And then we can just focus on being human, which I think is much more enjoyable. What do you think?
That's amazing. That's really amazing. I was always a bit skeptical about the educational system, how they want to push all the knowledge, all the hard facts, and you are sitting like that, especially like non-American, like in German universities. It's like you have to explain the same thing that the teacher told you. Wow, amazing. No social skills, like no speaking in front of the class, no teamwork so much. And it has to change because we cannot compete with knowledge, with facts, hard facts. And in terms of marketing, I think it also becomes more important, like with video content, where you see the human behind that instead of all the social media and Google is flooded with AI content and the text has already lost a lot of meaning, but it probably will lose even more meaning. And probably like seeing behind the scene, seeing the human behind the company is becoming more and more important, I think, isn't it?
I hope so. I think you're right. I think you see that in how important personal brand is right now, how that makes or breaks and carries an endeavor, right? Whatever it is, and how all the successful entrepreneurs are also successful at telling their story, right? At getting the message out about why they do what they do, what they believe in, what they think about developments. I feel that that's become standard now. It's become kind of like the way of things.
Yes. It was so much value in this episode. It can be, I think, like life-changing for businesses, for entrepreneurs, because now they have like the clarity. We didn't answer the exact question what they can do because this world is so different, diverse. So for everyone, it's a bit different. But we were focusing more like on the direction, on giving the right direction of the listeners so that they can make their own decision, how they create their business.
I would like to add one thing that I kind of left
definitely.
unsaid, which is this new tech that is coming out that will help you scale your business, will help you automate yourself as an entrepreneur to a large degree. Start using it now. that's
Yes.
that's what they can do. They can start looking into this, and they don't have to go all the way deep into the, very, very technical bits. They can just start
Yeah.
playing with what's out there. Play with it, so you start understanding what it can do and what it cannot do and what it will be able to do next year, right? And prepare for that.
Yeah.
Prepare for next year's version. If you think this year's version is like not that good, or it doesn't quite substitute whatever it is that you're doing right now, be ready for it being able, and start treating it as such now, so that when it's here, you can do it. My favorite way of looking at this, there's this guy called Ethan Mollick. He's like an influencer on AI. He's follow him on Twitter. He posts super insightful stuff, like more higher level stuff, not like the specific framework thing. But he had this essay recently where he said, every company, every business, every person should keep an impossibility list. A list of things that AI cannot do, right?
Mhm.
You think GP is great at writing copy, but it cannot do this thing. Okay, put it on that list. Everything you think it cannot do, you put it on the list. And then you keep checking on that list every 3 months to see if anything's changed.
Wow.
And then when you go, whoop, hold on a minute, now it can do that, which it couldn't do before, right? That's how you keep track of where you are and how to prepare for what's coming. That's my the best nugget that I can share with you.
That's amazing. I will check it out, and I will create this impossibility list, because sometimes we are critical, but we don't realize how fast it's actually developing and how amazing this development is, how amazing it's in the background, to have so much knowledge in such a quick response. And to put it's not just finding the knowledge. Google was impressive in the end of 90s, how they find all the information. But this is the next level, to summarize, to adjust the content. It's really amazing. One other tip I think I can give to our audience is to follow you on social media, because you are doing all the hard stuff, diving deep into AI technology. And by following you, they can be updated. They can be up to date. Can you recommend something? Where should they find you? On which social media?
Please find me on Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, all of those. But I'd say start with Twitter. That's where I post the most about this topic, but find me on the others too.
Yeah, we will link all those social media platforms in the description below. Thank you so much, Daniel. It was such a pleasure.
Thank you. It's been fantastic. Thank you for having me.
All right. Bye-bye. Have a nice day.
Thank you. You too. Bye-bye.